What if you can only really be alive when your life is on the line? What is the set of things for which you would be willing to die? And what would that mean? For something to be worthy of you dying for it, for you to say, I am willing to die for this, which in my view is similar to saying, I am willing to kill for this. For you to say that is, I think, an upward motion or a striving for that which is divine, or let's say that which is honorable. I think what I'm getting at is something like a definition of honor, but I think more accurately, it may even be a definition of what it is to really actually live. The state of the modern world is one in which we, at any moment, not only are our lives not really on the line most of the time, but there's really the consequences of whatever is happening to us, whatever we are doing, whatever our days are filled with. The consequences of these things are not for higher principles. In other words, if I try to acquire a certain type of vehicle or whatever it is that I'm trying to attain in my day-to-day struggles, if I don't accomplish that on some level, it's like I'm still accepting that. Like that, I'm not willing to die for that. Maybe I wanted to get a new truck, but I'm not willing to die for it. I'm not willing to go kill someone and take their truck for it, or risk my life in that attempt. And I'm not saying that you should. My point is that all of our day-to-day lives are filled with nothing but these mundane tasks for which we would not be willing to die. It occurs to me that if you are not willing to die for whatever it is you're doing, then you're not really living for it. If you, like, how can you be alive if you're not willing to die for whatever it is you're spending your time on? I think that's really the, not just the measure, but it's like, that's the dividing line between what is real and what is not, what is serious and what is not. We live such unserious lives that are not real. Imagine a line. On one side of that line is the higher principles, the things for which you would be willing to give your life. On the other side of that line is things that you would not be willing to give your life for, that maybe you want, maybe you have some passing desire, maybe this is a day-to-day thing that you seek out, but at no point are you willing to. In other words, none of these things are more important to you than life itself. Like, imagine a man who says, I am willing to die, but I am not willing to go on living without X, Y, or Z. In that instance, X, Y, or Z, that's real for him. That's meaningful. That is to be alive. That guy is living. If you can find something for which you are willing to die, you would be willing to give your life and center your life around that. That is a gift. And I don't know if the challenge of modern life perhaps is just finding something that is that important, that you can center your life around. Or perhaps if it doesn't even really matter what it is, but you have just focused your will to such an extent that you would be willing to die. I mean, I think this, on that side of the line, the side of the line that includes all the things for which you'd be willing to die, that is honor. That is honor. Honor is a set of higher principles, or divine principles perhaps, which you consider to be non-negotiable in life. We live without those principles. We don't have them. Where are they? Show me the evidence of them. The average man, if you go to work and pick a coworker at random, if you go to the street and pick a guy at random and try to find for him something for which he would be really willing to die, I think you would have a very hard time. For some people, if they had kids, they might be willing to die for their kids. Although I think a lot of people would be shocked at how cowardly even many of them would turn out to be. For most people, there'd be nothing. You would have nothing. You would have nothing for which you'd be willing to die. And so your life is empty. Your life doesn't mean anything because it's unserious. And you don't really mean anything that you say. Because if you say, I'm gonna go do this tomorrow, but doing that and following through on that is not important to you enough that you are willing to die for it, then you did not really mean that. What you meant is, oh, here's this passing desire that on the surface maybe I will sort of aim toward, but if it doesn't happen, that's fine. That's not conviction, and that's not real. That's not a real desire. That is not a real action. Even if you do attain it, even if the wind happens to blow your way and you get what you think you want, The fact that you were not willing to put down your life for it. And I'm not saying that you should put down your life for everything. Not everything is that important. But the fact that we have reduced modern existence to a life where nothing has that importance is why it feels so dead, I think. That is why this existence, it just feels like so often, just going through the motions. And people become tired of the way the world is. People become tired of the same thing every day. And they start buying material possessions to try to make it feel different because it feels exhausting. And that's what they're trying to run from. They go on a travel trip. They go on they make changes, surface level changes, to try to mask the fact that there is no meaning in their life. There's no meaning in your life because you're not serious about anything. If you actually want to live, and most people don't. Most people don't want to live. They're just afraid to die. But if you do decide that you actually want to live, and you do really genuinely desire that, then I think you will be on a desperate quest to find something for which you will be willing to die.